One of the amazing tools is, I'm telling myself that, or I'm in my story that instead of saying, you're this, you're that, you did this because of this, and this, how about I'm telling myself that you're angry at me because da, 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 or I'm telling myself you slammed that door because of this. That's a whole opens up a whole new perception and possibility for connection and understanding.
And not making assumptions,
Yeah.
not believing all the stories we tell ourselves or the assumptions about what someone is thinking or doing or why.
Yeah.
Coming with curiosity. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think that's where most people fail in all of our relationships. It's like we're taught to you need to be correct, you need to be right, and especially as women, it's like we need to, women in business or in the world, or we need to have, show up, be better than, have the right answers, and so we need to like be able to kind of do this kind of thing. But in reality, that is not helping. That might help us in certain technical aspects, but in relationships, it doesn't help us to build more connection in relationships.
Well, Heather, how do I describe Heather? I had the great fortune of meeting this woman, Heather Salmon, in 2003. And we met in Mount Shasta and had a magical time. And you're about to have a magical time with her. She is a renowned sound healer, and she and her husband, Donnie, co founded the Black Swan Temple. She's a mystic. She's a cultural creative. She's a humble woman willing to share and do all that is necessary. She knows how to listen. She's a visionary, which you will soon find out. And she and her beloved Donnie lead people on experiences through their sound healing, through their musical videos, and in Egypt to offer people a entry into mysticism and living a more embodied spiritual life. So enjoy our conversation. It's all about love, and specifically how Heather got herself energetically prepared for Donnie and in the right place, as she says, which was both a physical move, but also an energetic inner move to her own sovereignty and her own commitment to growth and truth. Enjoy. Did you have a feeling before you met Donnie that you were about to meet your sweetheart?
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Did was it a feeling? Was it visions? Like, how did you know it was time and that he was coming your way?
Well, I had been preparing myself. I had been doing a lot of work on myself. I kind of put myself in a place where I thought, hey, this is a place where I am going to meet my beloved. I just know it.
When you say that, when you say you put yourself in a place, was it a energetic place or was it a physical place? Was it both?
Both, both.
Okay, tell more, because there's a lot of people and women that are so ready to meet a soul inspired partner, like someone who really is going to propel them into their work and their life, which is what I see with you and Donnie.
Mm-hmm.
So anything, if you can shed light on, yeah, tell us your story. Like, how did you get yourself in the physical place and the energetic place?
All right. Well, I'm from Toronto originally, and I had had a number. My first career, I started off. I have a degree in business, commerce, and economics. My first degree was in international sports. So I was a producer working with the NBA and all of this, and one thing led to another. I became an actress, and then I ended up moving to LA. Long story short, and in LA, I actually happened kind of stumbled into acting, and I was did really well, surprisingly enough. But I knew it wasn't really my calling. So while I was in LA, I was studying. I started to study healing arts. I went into seminary school. And then I heard that I was to develop healing in the performing arts. And this is the early 2000s, really. So then I started creating these ceremonies. I do sound healing and energy work at the Women's Club of Hollywood. And um, that started to feel much more fulfilling and aligned to me. I'm like, yeah, this feels good. And then 2006, 7 came along, and kind of the acting industry went through some shifts as the internet came online. And I just felt like it was time for me to parlay out of there. And I was like, okay, well, where should I go? What should I do? And one thing led to another, and I ended up living at Harbin Hot Springs in Northern California. So I was called there, and I was like, yeah, this place is really aligned with my values. It was a hot springs that we had 150,000 guest visits a year. We had 150 residents. We lived there, ran the place, and I was more interested in sustainability and community. And they had a beautiful temple that I could step right into and develop my craft. And I was like, this is where I'm going to meet my beloved. I know it. Even though it outward appearances to a lot of my friends were like, Heather, what are you doing here? Sweeping the floors, washing the dishes.
I remember us having conversations about this because we met in 2003 or 4. It was
Right.
actually 2003. It was the winter solstice of 2003 that you came through Mount Shasta and we had time together. And I
Yeah.
later visited you in Hollywood and I got to watch you become more of you and then attract Donnie. And
Yeah.
but you've been talking about something that I want to kind of hit on.
Sure.
You asked and then you listened.
Hmm.
It felt like with the acting career, you're like, this isn't quite it. What is? And then, I don't want to live here anymore. Where do I want to go? You asked and then you listened.
My mantra, I've done Course in Miracles 2 times fully. And one of my favorite passages from Course in Miracles is, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? So
Mm.
that became my mantra.
When
And
you moved to Harbin, did you said, "Oh, I heard you say something to the effect of I'm going to meet my beloved." So,
yeah,
was there a knowing that part of your purpose and your being able to offer the performing arts in to the world, was there a knowing that there would be another being involved, a partner involved? Was that because you sounded so confident?
I didn't know that it would be a collaboration, but what I was asking for, I believe what I was asking for was to feel supported in my work. And what I do, I wanted to have someone, who I could have fun with, who was adventurous, who, all these qualities and values that I valued. I believed more in doing that than creating a list of check marks, what this person. So when I came to that, I wanted to feel valued in my relationship. I want to feel seen and heard and supported in my work. Then, Donnie showed up.
Well,
And
yeah,
in a way that,
fill us in. So you moved to this remote town that has
yeah,
a lot of people
tiny town.
flowing in. Yeah. And beautiful hot springs and a healing resort, basically.
Yeah.
And then you were there in the kitchen, in the temple, and
Mhm.
sweeping floors. So there was a humbleness too. There was like you putting the value of your own awakening and your
Mhm.
temple arts above the glamour of being an actress in LA. That's actually quite a big deal if you think about it in this culture.
Yeah, sure. That's why, and I ended up becoming a chef in the restaurant and a vegetarian and raw food chef. And so, opportunities kind of arose and I knew they would. And I was making, when you're in a community like that, it's kind of like a pressure cooker. It tests all of your spiritual prowess tools and all of that. And that's really what I was looking for. I mean, it's easy to kind of even be in Hollywood and be in your own little apartment and practice your spiritual practice. And, not really have too many people around to engage with. But, I mean, that's one thing. But being in a community of 150 people and having 100,000 guest visits come through a year is a whole nother ball game. And testing your um, values in terms of being the piece you want to be, showing up the way you want to, because of course, we're still developing, and it's like that diamond, the pressure.
Well, and you're speaking to something so important, and that is that we are practicing in every single relationship we have. We are practicing. We're
Yes.
practicing communication, we're practicing authenticity, vulnerability, what to do when triggers arise, what to do when we get agitated or frustrated. And so I'm hearing that you just walked right on into that. And
Yeah, it was actually through NVC, nonviolent communication, that Donnie and I actually connected because
okay, tell us more. How did that happen? So you're following your passion, and that's also important to say. You're really
yeah.
following your passions and your personal growth. So
Mhm.
you started studying and
NVC with Scott Katamas, who people might be familiar with. And Scott and his wife, who was alive then, Suchi, were dear friends of mine and dear friends of Donnie's. And they would have these little gatherings at their house. And so Donnie and I met maybe in 2010 or something at a party, like just briefly. We were both actually with other people. And then 2011 rolled around and Scott was like, I was practicing NVC with him. I was trying to learn, develop my communication skills even a little better. But Scott was, and I was doing these ceremonies and, leading groups and things like that. And Scott one day was like, Heather, I'm going out of town. Can you please sub for me? I was like, you want me to sub for you? I'm just trying to learn this stuff. He's like, you're going to be fine. And I'm going to send Donnie with you. And Donnie is very well versed in NBC. I mean, he used to video Marshall, all his seminars and that. So Donnie's been around NBC for many, many years, much longer than before me. So I was like, okay, we showed up to teach this class, facilitate this class. And I started off with a little meditation with my bowls. This is, yeah, 2011. And then Donnie was like, hey, you're actually really good at that. Notable. And he's producer, my husband. So he's produced a lot of new age albums and is a very accomplished pianist, keyboardist himself. And so he was like, I would love to play with you and support. I think, but I can bring you, together. We could take it all to the next level. And you should have some CDs too. So we got together and started collaborating, and then one thing led to another, and we just kept collaborating for now we've been together for 14 years. So
so one thing led to another. Maybe you can fill us in a little bit about how was the dating, courtship, the transition from co-creating in NVC and sound healing. And your first CDs, were you doing more meditation?
yes, sound healing with guided meditation. I'm a hypnotherapist, so I do like a hypno sound healing guided journeys.
Okay,
Um,
and so one thing led to another.
One thing led to another. We started collaborating, and really quickly, we're like, hey, we really like each other. And we were kind of both seeing other people at the time, but mine was kind of more a long distance kind of thing. And so we were like, we want to be together. So we did. We kind of separated from the other parties, and just Donnie wound up. This was after, we live in Maui now, but this was he was on the mainland after the financial crisis of 2008, 9, to trying to get his life back together. And so he wound up living with me. I had a house outside of Harbin for almost a year, and he was kind of like the house husband. He was like, this is great. I'm going to produce music and you're sound healing all day long. I get to go to the hot springs. You can bring me great food home every day from the restaurant. We get to play in the temple. So it was like an ideal, easy thing for him. He's like, almost a year later, he's like, by the way, we have this place in Maui. maybe we should sell it and stay here at Harbin because it's so easy and fun. I'm like, hang on, back up. No, wait, because all the fires were coming through every year. I'm like, I don't know, honey. I think we should go see what's going on. I want to see this land in Maui. So we created a retreat over here down the street and we came to the land. I'm like, no, we're moving here. And these fires really don't feel safe to me. I feel like they're coming for
And then
town. And
for those of you who don't know, eventually there was a really devastating fire that went through Middletown and Harbin, and
yeah.
people evacuated, lost their homes. So once again, you were listening, very visionary. You've always been visionary. That's my experience of you. But I am kind of curious about this piece. So you were with him for quite a while, and he was a little bit more of the house husband.
Mhm.
He was going through his own financial or regrouping of his career. Um, were you, and you weren't aware of his real estate in Maui?
Not really. I mean, he talked about Maui, but he didn't really. This place actually had some issues with it. It had, Donnie. So we're kind of out in the country down the road to Hana,
As I know, I've been there
and
more than
Donnie's
once.
been here for 40 years, and he's had this land for 30 years. And Hawaii, Maui is kind of like 50 years ago. People were just living in kind of huts with earthen floors, and there wasn't a whole lot of bureaucracy and oversight on things. So because we're in the country, he was like building and building and building. He kind of built a lot. And so then when the bureaucracy got together and the financial crisis happened, the bureaucrats, they went after everyone. And so we ended up with like a lot of fines, $1.7 million of fines on our land. And he was like, oh, how am I ever going to get out of this? And he was thinking that he was going to just lose the land. But when I came, I was like, oh no, honey, we're going to figure this out. And so we packed up and moved here. And yeah, within about 6 months, we got those fines all forgiven down to just a few $1,000s because everything was built to code or better. And we got it all cleaned up. And so we're like, yeah, let's go move forward. I
Wow.
learned how to drywall. I learned how, like
Oh, I
figured
know, I know. I've
it
seen
out.
yeah, and you're willing. You've always been willing. So I love that about you. You and Donnie, so I've been around you guys a lot, enough to just see the genuine care you have for each other. And the first time I met him, I was just, what struck me is he just adores you. Can you tell a little bit more about what is it like to live with a man that adores you? And was that something you were looking for?
Sure. I mean, like I said, I wanted to feel seen and appreciated and valued and supported. That was really important to me. So it came out as this man who adores me. So hey, there you go. It's like,
But he also meets you.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
What's the soul to soul connection that you and Donnie have?
Well, I think Donnie and I have been together many lifetimes. We're born exactly 9 months to the day apart in this lifetime. Our mothers are kind of born 2 days apart, different years though.
Mm.
Um, so it feels like, we just came back and picked up from where we left off. I've run our human design, according to our human design, we're like 94% compatible. So some of it is by design, divine design, you know, and we've always just really had an easy time getting along with each other, appreciating each other. We have different skills. He's like the producer, musician, and also handyman, builder, carpenter, plumber, all those kind of things. And I'm more like the business, the visionary, the marketer, um, that kind of the get the people here, that kind of. So together, it creates a whole powerful synergy of creation. Yeah.
Do you ever get caught up into roles, based on your genders? Do you notice that you ever, because I'm thinking back to the house husband comment. And what I see, you're both really evolved in your masculine and feminine. There's a way that you guys dance together that seems like there's just there's polarity there, and there's a swinging
Mhm.
of these energies. So do you ever get concerned about the role you play or he plays, or how is that experience for you as a woman?
Yeah, I don't really get concerned. I mean, he'll sort of complain like, I hate doing the plumbing, this and that, but then I'm like, okay, honey, let's hire someone to do it. We don't have to do it. Like, let's figure it out. And rules, I've been a cook, but he loves to cook too. So, during our retreats, we cook together, and I'm kind of more the lead head chef, and he's more the sous chef, and he just loves supporting and chopping or doing making sauces he's really good at and that kind of thing. So he's very creative. So I think that's, very feminine as well. So I feel like he's very balanced in his masculine and feminine. And I can be pretty focused and driven. And, so maybe and then I manifest and through creativity and kind of the magic. Um, so yeah, I don't think we really ever have issues. I'm always like he can get frustrated with some of the building and the maintenance of the land because we're in the jungle here. So my solution is like, let's hire someone. It's okay.
It's your executive mind that is so
Right.
powerful. Yeah. Yeah. And then meanwhile, he is the engineer, and what you two have created and produced together in both your movie, you did that incredible award-winning.
Two of them, actually.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I'm marveled at how you've together in the ease of your relationship been able to just really co-create some impactful multimedia and experiential movies and programs and retreats and tours as a couple.
A fabulous coach. I mean, I think back to what you're saying is how he adores me. Donnie has a real gift for almost adoring everybody. He has a gift he does this like life coaching where he will inspire you, whoever he's talking to remember the magic within them, remember the greatness within them. And whenever I get down, he'll kind of help me, like, oh, honey, like, he'll he'll support and coach me in that way too. So it's a
Mm.
beautiful quality and gift that he has really. And being a producer and music producer and wanting to get the best out of everyone who's in his recording studio, that's kind of the magic that people receive out of working with him.
Can we just go back to something that might speak to people who are listening? And it's that you both were in when you met, you came together to collaborate and to work together. Meanwhile, you both were in romantic relationships,
Mhm.
and then you felt the spark. How did you consciously let go of the other relationships and open to that transition of you and Donnie going from co-creators, collaborators, to partners, to romantic partners, to sensual sexual partnership? How did you make the transition?
Well, the relationships we were in were kind of more long distance and kind of more casual than serious committed relationships, I would say. So, like I was dating someone who I'd get together with on weekends here and there and go to festivals with or that kind of thing. So I didn't feel like it was so serious that it was this heart-wrenching thing to end that. And he understood. I was like, okay, I'm ready to get off of this festival whatever casual thing. And same with Donnie. He was dating someone um, who actually prided herself to be polyamorous and this and that. I'm like, and so he was like, well, you got other choices, so you're not going to miss me. But she actually was like, Heather, I'm upset with you took him away from me. But yeah, so because neither of them were we really wanted a committed, monogamous relationship where we were working together and just creating a life together.
That's really kind of interesting because I know that there's options. And some people feel like, oh, I can't have casual dating while I'm preparing for my monogamous, long term, forever beloved.
Or
Um, right, there's like, and then there's a path where if there's clarity in the dating with whoever you're dating and you're open to other opportunities coming your way, it can be respectful, and we can learn through the dating process. um we didn't talk a lot about your past, and I know you were married at one point and you've obviously had different men in your life, but when you look back at the men you've been with, including this fun festival dude, um what do you glean from, like, what have you learned from past relationships that you now bring to your relationship with Donnie is one, and how do you reconcile or forgive yourself for any missteps that you've made in past relationships?
wow. Well, I would say I'm going to talk about the missteps first because the hardest thing I ever had to do was leave my first husband. I had two beautiful stepdaughters who I loved and adored, and it was just heart-wrenching to leave him. And actually, after we did, and I moved to LA, we still were together for well, we didn't get divorced, let's just say, for about 7 years after we separated, and we would still spend holidays together. Like, he lived in Toronto, where I'm from, so when I go home for Christmas and still spend time with him and the girls, and he was so sweet and kind and accepting and supportive, actually, that um yeah, that is definitely something that I appreciated, and we're still friends today. And my stepdaughters are grown, and just spent time with them at their weddings and things. So really valued that quality of character in a man. Um, which and then forgiving myself. After that, after I left that marriage, I was kind of celibate for almost 5 years, I think, because I was trying to figure out what went wrong. It seemed like the picture perfect marriage, and it was just our families were friends, and it was super hard for me to end that. So I did a lot, and yeah, it's like, how could you step away from having it all, like fame and money and all of that? So, beautiful family. So it took me into a deep soul searching, and a lot of deep healing from my wounds. And that's why I got into the healing work and into sound healing, and into the seminary work, which was totally transformational for me. And yeah, so learning to forgive and myself and release that and move forward in a good way, knowing that the standard that I kind of had in that marriage there were a lot of beautiful things about it. I want to keep that in my life and in my relationships. So,
Yeah, there is something about like having a standard, like having experienced a lot that was working in that relationship, and obviously other aspects that your guidance, your intuition, your knowing was saying it wasn't for
mm,
you. But bringing the gifts and the aspects of that did work, and expecting that in your next relationship. Talk about raising the bar.
yeah, what I definitely brought forward.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what would you say for a woman or a man who's spiritual, awake, conscious, finding themselves at this point in their lives single, and feeling or yearning or desiring a intimate, beloved, long-term relationship? How might you either encourage or inform someone in that situation?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think it's really important to have remember and identify how you want to feel in that relationship, be in that relationship, more than what they look like, what they have, all that kind of list. Really, how do you want to feel in your relationship? And get in touch with the feeling qualities and all of that energy, um, and feeling that in your body so you can attract that partner. I think a lot of people get caught up in the kind of list of what they need to have or look like or do or da 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 da. And some of that is important. I mean,
You're speaking my language because I learned that for sure. And you met my first husband who was lovely and he was so much of what I was looking for in a man.
uh-huh.
How I felt in that relationship, and this had to do with myself as much as the dynamic between them and where we were in our own spiritual and psychological evolution. But how I felt in that relationship was not the free flowing, authentic, vulnerable me that I wanted to feel. And so I have always encouraged myself first, and it worked, and others to let the feeling be the navigation, even
Yes.
in the dating process. And so you even talked about that. You and Donnie, you were like, oh, we really like each other. We're really enjoying co-creating together. You could feel it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's nice to be loved and adored for who you are, which is what I sense from the two of you.
Mhm.
So encouraging people to really get clear about how they want to feel in the relationship and then feel it now. How can people feel that in the absence of having another person reflect that?
Well, it's important to activate your imagination and spend time kind of mocking up that sensation, that those feelings, engaging all of your senses, and just imagine. They say we only need to hold a vision for 70 seconds, and then we've created the energetic template for it to manifest. So the more you can kind of mock up that feeling, those sensations, allow yourself to dream, to vision, to engage all of your senses. And then you can create a little anchor, like just touch together your thumb with your forefinger, create a little energetic anchor for you. It's a little NLP exercise. And this is how I do with all of my manifestations, pretty much, actually. And then you release that. So whenever you come back to this, it's going to kind of trigger on a cellular level those manifestations as those templates, and it'll keep you kind of on track, with that manifestation.
Was Donnie doing that too? Have you guys talked about this?
Donnie was actually he was ready for a relationship, and he was actually went through someone's how to attract your partner course in Marin. And so he's like, so yeah, so he was doing his own work around it, and I was doing my own work, and they came together.
Well, I'm so glad you guys are together and modeling this because I know you've been an inspiration for me, Heather, both of you.
You.
Yeah, because I can feel the ease between the two of you. I can feel the harmony. Of course, you make music, so that's a good metaphor, but it's just natural. There's a confidence and a stability in what you have together that is admirable. And it really did give me a lot of faith and hope.
Aw.
Thank you to both of you.
And it isn't always easy. I mean, we can get in our moods and in our funk, but we just sometimes we're like, just need a little space. I'm going shopping, going to the beach or whatever. Just taking the space or just stop talking about it for 24 hours, letting it go, let it air out and then find come back to each other. And so
And I'm guessing because you both are very versed in compassionate communication, you are pretty good at coming back together and owning your own experiences and then understanding each other to adapt and make changes.
compassionate communication has been amazing tool, because really understanding um, my feelings and needs, and instead of that blame, shame, attacking kind of mode, it's like, okay, what am I feeling? What am I needing? What's not being met? So owning that is tremendous, and knowing how to ask for requests, how to make requests, um, super huge for me and for the stability of our relationship.
Yeah. Number one, I mean, and it starts right at the beginning. I mean, when I met Gavin, it was like I knew that my practice was being able to ask for what I wanted and to
Mhm.
take full responsibility for everything I was feeling.
Mhm.
And I really didn't know. I had a feeling when I first met him that he was going to be my guy. But I didn't know. We don't know until we know. But what
Yeah.
I knew is the only way that it would be apparent and the fastest way it would be apparent is if I brought my full self to this relationship, which included what you're saying, owning my feelings, asking for what I wanted, being totally authentic at the risk of maybe losing the relationship early
Mhm.
on. Um,
Right.
and we kept doing that and we kept doing that. And here we are, almost 2 years later, and we're still doing that.
That's
And
great.
yeah, I know. I just want to ding, 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 really good tool.
Yeah.
Nonviolent communication or compassionate communication. People can Google it. Great tool to do now in the dating process, in all relations, and bring to the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And getting coaching if you need it. And like Donnie and I, early on, we would get coaching because, a little bit. We'd reach out to Scott, our friend, and like, okay, we need because we're still learning about how to communicate in better ways and learning that, we each have our stories. And one of the amazing tools is, I'm telling myself that, or I'm in my story that instead of saying, you're this, you're that, you did this because of this, and this. How about I'm telling myself that you're angry at me because da, 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 or I'm telling myself you slammed that door because of this. That's opens up a whole new perception and possibility for connection and understanding.
And not making assumptions,
Yeah.
not believing all the stories we tell ourselves or the assumptions about what someone is thinking or doing or why.
Yeah.
Coming with curiosity. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think that's where most people fail in all of our relationships. It's like we're taught you need to be correct, you need to be right, and especially as women, it's like we need to, women in business or in the world, or we need to have, you know, show up, be better than, have the right answers, and so we need to like be able to kind of do this kind of thing. But in reality, that is not helping. That might help us in certain technical aspects, but in relationships, it doesn't help us to build more connection in relationships. And so
Mm.
if we understand how to kind of own our own stuff and approach it with curiosity and say, I'm telling myself, I'm in my story that and then da 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 rather than this you did this because of that da 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 which people get afraid, they get frightened, they get guarded. um so super useful way of approaching relationships and opening up space for deeper understanding and connection.
You know, what's coming to me, so maybe for someone who's watching this, perhaps in the dating environment or a new relationship, perhaps there's that understanding, like we come with that, but the partner isn't coming with that. In other
Mhm.
words, that ability to say, I'm telling myself the story. So that's when we get to model it by saying,
Mhm.
I don't want to make an assumption here. Can I check something out with you? Because I'm telling myself the story that you're not texting me or getting back to me means you don't want to be with me or pursue.
Mhm.
Am I correct here? What's going on for you? So that's the modeling. And I think it's also, I know it's also absolutely imperative if the dating partner, the one that maybe someone's exploring right now that's listening to this, is making assumptions and isn't coming with curiosity, it's okay to ask, hey, wait a second, before all the assumptions, are you willing to look at the possibility that this is what you're thinking? Do you want to run it by me? Do you want to know what I'm, because I'd love to tell you my perception. And maybe some of it's true, but there's other elements as well. This is where we grow and stretch together, but we have to ask for it. Not everyone is as psychologically mature. You and Donnie came together. You were both very psychologically mature.
Yeah, when we came together, yeah, after each of us has done later in life in our late 40s, you know, after we've each done a lot of work on ourselves.
But how have you both grown? Just maybe we can end there. But how have you seen Donnie grow and you grow in being in each other's lives?
Yeah, I think I've probably definitely softened around some of my edges a little bit as I grow in this relationship, and I feel he's obviously we're mirrors of each other, and it's like we do a lot of ritual together and are always reflecting on where we're at, how do we want to grow? Like we do this regularly, actually. So get to look at, okay, how do I want to grow? How do I want to be in relationships? It's all about relationships. It's life pretty much. And then get to practice with starting with him and then with everyone else around me. So I definitely feel like I've kind of, um, yeah, maybe I've lost a bit of edginess, and I've softened a little bit and more um, skilled, less reactive, more skilled at being present and open and kind, those kind of things.
Mm.
And Donnie, well, you'd have to ask him that, but he's just I think Donnie will say that definitely he's grown in his spiritual practice um, since being with me and as a result of our relationship, because I've been so deeply aligned with my practice and in it and sharing with people. So yeah, I think that's a huge way he's grown. He says he is, before when he was younger, he's just about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and now he's more like the priest. He's a priest, and he's a servant, and he lives a life of service.
Well, I love who you continue to become in each other's presence. And I'm really grateful you're in my life. And I'm really glad we did this because there's a lot of wisdom and truth and humbleness, as always, Heather, in the way that you share your life story so that others can also be inspired and make changes. Anything else you want to add?
That's about it. Don't know, keep the faith and know that, whatever you're calling in is kind of calling you. So I think that these tools of the NBC can really help soften us and help us become more open to possibility. So
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. Thank you all for tuning in. Aloha.